So a couple of months back, I finished watching Bleach. Finally. I say finally because it took me quite a long time to finish it. A lot longer than I expected. It is an anime with over 350 episodes, so it's not short, but still, it took way longer than what I would have wanted it to. The main reason it took so long to finish was because I just kept falling asleep with some of the episodes. But wait. Before you hardcore Bleach fans get on your keyboard to rip me a new one, just let me explain. I loved Bleach. It's a great anime, but it has a lot of issues. Now, I asked the community what you guys thought of Bleach, and most of you either haven't watched it or think I was talking about a cleaning product. I don't know what to think of this. Anyway, the main issues is that it's very repetitive. Not in terms that you know exactly what's gonna happen next, but more along the lines of, you just have a feeling everything's gonna be alright in the end. Not only that, they kind of use the same patterns with their fights, like, all the time. The other major issue is the fillers. Bleach is 45% filler, which means almost half of this anime is goddamn filler. Now, I have a lot to say about Bleach, you know, obviously, or else I wouldn't be making a video around it. There is both good and bad. There are things you probably won't want to hear, and there's probably things that you're going to relate to. I watched the whole anime from start to finish, including all the fillers, no matter how hard it was sometimes. So feel free to agree with me or disagree with me down in the comments. Just keep in mind this is an opinion of just one guy, AnimeFarruski. Now drop my beat! Okay, so before we go deep into the video, just keep in mind there will be spoilers. I will be talking about a lot of the key elements from the story, so if you haven't watched the anime and you intend to, just keep that in mind. Now, like I said before, Bleach is an amazing anime. I definitely have a love-hate relationship with Bleach because what it does well, it does really well. It definitely appeals to the little kid within us all. We all love swords growing up. Some of us still do. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid and I found something that just slightly looked like a sword, it would become one, like this stick. Massive sword potential here. Anyway, my point is the fights are great because it involves swords. Not only did it make it unique compared to the other shonen at the time, the swords weren't just swords. They were like living entities that changed shapes, and they had a certain personality to them. It made it so much more badass than just a standard sword fight, and this was one of the main appeals of the show for me. And I guess for a lot of people as well, since Bleach was one of the top anime back when it was released in 2004. It wasn't known as being one of the big three for no reason, the other two being One Piece and Naruto. Now I can vouch for Naruto and even compare it a bit to Bleach because it is one of my favorite anime of all time and I've watched it from start to finish, but I can't do the same for One Piece because I haven't watched it yet. I fear no anime, but that episode count scares me. Anyway, as a small comparison, I would rate Bleach's first 3 arcs as being better than Naruto's first 3 arcs, by a long shot. Bleach definitely has a more mature aura to it than Naruto did. Problem is, after those 3 arcs, Naruto kept getting better, while Bleach kept dropping in quality. Massively. By the time it picks up again later on, it just becomes repetitive. I'll elaborate a bit more on this. Now keep in mind, I won't be going too deep into the plot or the characters or just anything in general. All I'm gonna share is what I felt, what I thought, what I experienced whilst watching the show. Alright, so the first arc, like most anime, is more of an introductory arc to introduce a small amount of main characters, their abilities, and to explain what the hell is going on in this world. It's all done really well in my opinion. I instantly got sucked in, especially by Rukia, Ichigo, and Ishida. Chad and Inoue were decent characters, but I didn't hold too many feelings towards them. They kind of just felt like your standard side characters. All in all, it's a solid season that hooks you in. Definitely not the best, but it does a decent job. By the end of this arc, we are introduced to 2 more characters who are far more powerful than anything we see up to this point, which causes Ichigo to lose his powers, and Rukia is taken as a prisoner. This is a great cliffhanger that just makes you want to see more. The second and third arc ramp up the quality tenfold. It's like they put all of the effort and passion into these 2 arcs, and for me, it's where most of my favorite moments from the show happen, and I think it's probably the case for most people. They introduce the rest of what will be the main cast, which are the captains and lieutenants, the main abilities that the Zanpakuto have, these are what the swords are called, and the fights, plot, and character development throughout the arcs are really well done. There are a couple of fillers at this point, scattered here and there, but it's only like a couple of episodes, and they're not that bad. Everything is great, and I look forward to seeing more. I found myself staying up late until stupid hours in the morning because I just need needed to watch the next episode. I just couldn't get enough. We not only see Ichigo get his powers back, but he reaches a new level of power entirely. He then infiltrates a world where it's filled with powerful Shinigami, aka death gods. We see some amazing epic fights as Ichigo overcomes harder and harder challenges as he goes on. We then see him get an even higher level of power that matches Byakuya, what seems to be the strongest Shinigami around at this point in time, and not to mention the one who humiliated him in the previous arc and made him lose his powers. Watching Ichigo go into Bankai for the first time was like watching Goku go Super Saiyan for the first time. It's such an amazing scene. We also see a snippet of Ichigo's hollow side as well, which left me with a lot of questions, but a lot of excitement at the same time. He comes out victorious in the end and proves all the doubters wrong while saving his friend from execution in the process. And then to finish it off, they did a great job of leaving another epic cliffhanger when the arc finishes with this scene. All the effort and epicness Ichigo reached to then get humiliated by one single finger. This ending was a perfect conclusion to this arc and left you with a massive cliffhanger that you just wanted to see what happens next. Aizen may not be the best villain ever, but boy does he have one of those faces you just want to punch. I couldn't wait to see more, but what was about to come was not what I expected, nor was it what I wanted. What came next was the Bount arc. For me, and for most people, the worst filler arc of the whole series. This is probably the point where Bleach lost a lot of its following, a lot of its popularity, and maybe what started its downfall, because this arc is just terrible. The series went from awesome fights with interesting characters to a very boring, slow-paced arc. After a massive climax, Bleach just became boring. From start to finish, it just feels like a forced, pointless filler arc. It's so boring. The villains aren't all that interesting. They're basically soul vampires that have a vendetta against the Shinigami because they made them that way. You know, the plot is a bit cliched, but they could have made it better. Not only is it bad, it's really long. It's 44 episodes long. 44 episodes of continuous boring filler. This is why I kept falling asleep. It's true that I watched it at nighttime, but I fell asleep way faster than usual. I sometimes start an episode only to start nodding off after like 5 minutes. 5 literal minutes. Bleach became my insomnia cure. Nothing really kept me captivated enough that I lost track of time like the previous arcs did, like a good anime is supposed to. Now keep in mind, I don't mind fillers. I know why they're there, but they need to be done right. Not just anything to keep the show going on for a bit longer. In my opinion, instead of this, it would have been better to just stop the show there and then just wait till the next arc became available. For the viewers that endured this horrible torture like I did, after 44 episodes, we finally got what we wanted. The end of this arc, and you know, the next canon arc as well. Anyway, after this, things do pick up again. We see the introduction of some new characters and enemies, which strangely resemble Ichigo in his hollow form. Shortly after, we see a struggle with his inner hollow, which in turn costs him to be massively overpowered by one of the Arrancar. Yet another enemy type that's introduced. And once I saw these episodes, I became fully invested in Bleach once again. A few episodes later, we see even more Arrancar get introduced and find out that they are no joke. They are powerful enough to even rival a captain's power. Not only that, their leader is none other than Aizen. Everything is on the rise once again. We see some more epic fights where we see our main characters struggle, but you know, then they end up winning, even though it looked like certain death for them. And from this point forward is where we start seeing a lot more repetitiveness from the show. For example, Ishida lost his Quincy powers back in the 3rd arc, yet he manages to get them back. Bit similar to Ichigo losing his powers in the 1st arc. The main move Ichigo uses is Getsuge Tensho, like all the time. It's not quite as appealing as the Kamehameha or the Rasengan in my opinion. I may be wrong, but that's just me. And those are just a few of the repetitive tropes that Bleach has for now. Moving on from that, we dwell deeper into the visored stories, you know, the half hollow, half Shinigami characters. These are great additions to the roster in my opinion. They're interesting, they have hilarious personalities, and their abilities are awesome. Of course, because they have both hollow and Shinigami powers, they are extremely powerful. It's also great to see Ichigo try to control his hollow side with their help to get even stronger. Again, everything is great. And then we get some more fillers. 10 episodes in a row to be precise, which does break immersion from the main plot, but at least it's only 10 episodes, and they're not actually that bad. Back to the main plot, and we see Ichigo fight Grimmjow, one of the Arrancar, which he overpowers with his newfound hollow form, until he runs out of time. Because, you know, like Cinderella, he can only keep this form throughout a certain amount of time. Once time runs out, his mask crumbles, and he loses the ability to use those powers for a while. So he gets his head caved in. Hard. It's looking really grim, but then Ichigo is saved by his friends, and by his enemies in a way. Further ahead, Inoue is forced to go to Hueco Moon Mundo, the world of the Hollows, where Ichigo then decides to go retrieve her when he finds out. Just like he went to go retrieve Rukia in the second arc. So basically, Bleach's two main plots are friend fetch quests. I'm not saying it's a deal breaker, it just felt like they were playing it safe. Once we see a few episodes in Hueco Mundo, we then move to another 3 episodes in a row of filler, which again isn't too bad since it's kind of intertwined with the main plot, and this one is actually pretty good. Back to the main plot again, and Ichigo, Rukia, Ishida, Chad, and Renji are on their mission to rescue Inoue. I'm not gonna lie, some of the fights here are absolutely incredible, although they're a bit repetitive. It mostly boils down to the main characters getting beat up until they eventually triumph, even though they really shouldn't most of the time. Bankai will be used for sure. If it's a fight that involves Ichigo, he'll go into his hollow form and somehow be able to sustain it for a bit longer than the previous time, and he will win, most of the time anyway. Even the injuries are similar to a certain extent. There'll always be like a head injury when Ichigo starts bleeding. Like, how many concussions can this man take? And this sort of pattern kind of becomes a regular thing all the way through to the last episode of the show. I understand most shonen fights are repetitive. It's not just Bleach that suffers from this. We can say Dragon Ball suffers from this as well. It's not all bad though, don't get me wrong. There were bits that did surprise me, even though it was kind of repetitive. When Ichigo gets killed, it shocked me a bit because it kind of came out of nowhere. But you know, realistically, it's fine. Inoue is a master healer and basically revives him. Not only that, but he's the main character. He can't die when there are still like another 150 episodes left in the anime. In my opinion, would have been a bit more shocking if it was one of the side characters like maybe Chad or Renji. Now, maybe being a bit too harsh with the repetitiveness, it's not like that all the time, but it does get stale after a while. There's only so many times you can see Ichigo use Getsuga Tensho without wondering how the hell he expects his enemies not to see it coming. But somehow, they don't. It's not just Ichigo that keeps using the same moves either. It's a pattern with all the characters. Rukia with her Tsugi no Mai, Ishida with his Sprenger Trap, the other Shinigami with their Bankai. The fights just seem to have the same sort of pattern. On a side note though, the scene where Ulquiorra gets overpowered by a Getsuga Tensho is pretty epic. He's such a dick. With his calmness and superiority complex, makes me sick. Anyway, shortly after Ichigo's revival, we see the final fight with Grimmjow, and let me tell you, even though it's full of repetitive themes as well, it's still awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed this fight. For me, it was the best fight since the one with Byakuya. I enjoyed seeing Grimmjow's resurrection transformation as well. It was another great surprise. It made me want to see the other Aranka's resurrections and what they could do as well. It was a battle to prove who was stronger, and of course, Ichigo triumphed. But again, in Bleach fashion, straight after the conclusion of the fight with Grimmjow, they add another filler arc. This filler arc is 21 episodes long and is outside of Hueco Mundo. What the hell happened? Aizen just let them all leave just to do a little side quest? This isn't The Witcher 3. Even Inoue is in this filler arc, which left me confused to say the least. It's just about this new random captain that is kind and good and then ends up wanting revenge on Yamamoto. It doesn't even matter. It's not that great. My point is, they ruined the hype of putting a filler arc right after an epic conclusion to a fight. Yet again, Bleach hyped itself up just to shoot itself back down. When we eventually return to the main canon plot, the story gets interesting once again. We see new Aranka forms as well as a few twists to the story, and again, the fights are pretty epic. Although, you know, repetitive once again. The captains show up using the exact same Bankai abilities that they used in the second and third arc, you know, apart from maybe 2 characters. Same goes to the other captains that are fighting the rest of the Aranka in the fake Karakura town. It just gets so predictable. The captains are getting beat up. They're almost dead, but they're not dead yet. Somehow, they manage to get that last piece of strength, and they win. And don't get me started on how nerfed that the Visored are. When I first saw them show up and join the fight, I thought this was gonna be awesome. These will give the Aranka a run for their money. These are half hollow, half Shinigami, but they didn't. Why? They should be leagues above all the captains. It just doesn't make sense to me how they're on a captain's level. Anyway, back in Hueco Mundo, Ichigo is about to fight Ulquiorra once again. The moment I'd been waiting for, the fight I'd been looking forward to the most up to this point, but then they did it again. Instead of the fight that everybody wants to see, we get another filler arc. This time, a 38 episode long filler arc. Why? They did it again. Why don't they learn? In all honesty though, this is actually a great filler arc. It's about the Zanpakuto materializing into humanoid beings and rebelling against the masters. It is an interesting arc with interesting characters, and I did enjoy it, but the placement of it was just so annoying. If it was placed properly, it would have been even better to enjoy. You could have taken in the story and the characters, but because they put it before such a crucial fight, it just made me want to rush through it, hope it's over soon so I could go back to the main plot. Why would they think this was ever going to be a good idea? Once again, Bleach hypes itself up, just to shoot itself back down. Anyway, back to the main plot again. And here we finally see a bit of variety that got my heart pumping again. After the first few exchanges between Ichigo and Ulquiorra reveals he has a second form that the rest of the Arrancar don't. Once he transforms, he becomes an absolute beast. He is on an entirely different league, which massively overpowers Ichigo. He overpowers him that much, he ends up killing him for the second time. But of course it doesn't really matter. He's the main character. He can't die just yet. We still got like 100 episodes left. But this time, instead of seeing Inoue bring it back, he gets completely consumed by his hollow side. And he transforms into a superior hollow form we've not seen before, called the Vasto Lord. This form is much more beast-like than just the standard hollow takeover we saw before. And in my opinion, it was such a badass form and ultimately super powerful because it makes Ulquiorra look like a little bitch. And God, was it satisfying to see. This, in my opinion, is one of the show's greatest battles. I'd say second best of the whole show. Even after Ulquiorra is dead, Ichigo is still going berserk in this new form. I'll be honest, at this point, I thought we were going to see like a Van Helsing type of scenario where Ichigo would actually kill one of his friends in his rage, but it's not. No one gets killed. Except for the villain, of course. In Karakura Town, Aizen is released from the flaming prison Yamamoto put him in. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, Aizen was kind of trapped in this flaming ball of fire. But you know, it runs out of fuel, so now he's out. Long story short, he basically makes every single character his bitch. He is overpowered as hell, and all hope seems lost. Like I said before, Aizen isn't the best villain ever created, but he does a good job. He's so calm, smart, and ruthless that you just can't wait to see someone cut him down. Anyway, the situation is that bad that Ichigo's dad comes out of retirement to help, but is also tapped like a little bitch. No one is even close to being a match for Aizen. Not even Ichigo and his totally unpredictable Getsuga Tensho. The show eventually reveals that Aizen is only this powerful because he fused with a Hokyoho, which is basically a cheat code to get all hollow powers as well as keep the Shinigami ones without losing control. If there was a cheat code for being overpowered in the Bleach universe, this is it. The man is seemingly invincible. But it turns out Ichigo's old man also had a cheat code up his sleeve himself. Sneaky, sneaky. He takes Ichigo to the Precipice world where time moves much faster than in the real world so that Ichigo can learn a move called the Final Getsuga Tensho. Of course, why would they come up with a new move? Let's just use the same one that we always use, but you know, it's the final one. Anyway, between all this, we have a few episodes here and there where we go back in time to see how far back Aizen's betrayal goes, and we see how the Visor became Visor. By this point, I became that accustomed to Bleach putting fillers where they shouldn't that I had to go and check to see if this was filler or actually canon. It's not filler, it's totally canon. There are a decent few flashbacks to be fair as well, because we get to see more of the Visored background, but also Urahara's background. We kind of get to see how he got to where he is now. Anyway, back to the present, we get another interesting twist when we see Gin betray Aizen. He was getting close to him all along just so that he could kill him. But you know, Aizen is the main baddie, so obviously it's Ichigo's job to defeat him. So Gin is sliced like a piece of toast, and he dies. This will probably be the most surprising moment of the whole anime up to this point, because someone actually died. But you know, Gin was a villain throughout most of the show, so it doesn't really count. So with everyone seemingly unable to stop Aizen, all hope seems to be lost, you know, as always. But that's when Ichigo returns from his training, and boy does he come back with style. This is by far my favorite outfit of the whole series. The man just looks badass. The longish hair, the chain around his arm, the calmness and confidence around him. It just looks so good. Ichigo and Aizen finally have their fight, and it's just so satisfying to see Ichigo just toy with him so effortlessly. It's the perfect role swap from the end of the third arc. Ichigo just isn't fazed by Aizen's power because his is just so much bigger. Aizen is just totally outmatched in every single way, and as an ultimate finisher, Ichigo transforms into Super Emo Ichigo to unleash the final Getsuga Tensho, which also costs him to lose his spiritual pressure. You know, aka his powers, again. After using that move, he essentially loses all his powers and he just becomes a regular human again. Believe it or not, after all that epicness and sacrifice, it's not enough to actually kill Aizen. It only severely injured him. So Urahara swoops in and seals him away to get all of the XP. What an asshole. The world has been saved, Aizen has been stopped, everyone is happy, end of the story. Except it isn't. They had to squeeze some more filler before they concluded the story. Now this filler is placed properly at least, and it kind of does make sense with the whole plot because Ichigo doesn't lose his powers straight away. He gradually loses his powers. And you know, as a whole, it's not that bad of an arc either. There are like clones of the captains and lieutenants that this one guy made. You know, although he has been in the Soul Society for years, he only just shows up now. It mostly revolves around mod souls. All right, okay, so it's not that much of a great arc. I mean, in my opinion, they should have maybe swapped the Zanpakuto arc and put it here because it's much better than this, and put this one in the bin. Anyway, after the filler, we return to the main plot once again, where we see what, in my opinion, should have been the final episode of Bleach, and one hell of an emotional send-off. We see Ichigo slowly losing the last of what remains of his powers. As he says goodbye to Rukia, since he has no powers, you won't be able to see her again. And we see Rukia slowly fade away. This is a sad and emotional ending, but I think it would have been a great ending to the series. This is how Bleach should have ended. But it wasn't. They came up with yet another arc. Not a filler arc this time, but just as bad. The Fullbringer arc. This is by far the worst arc in Bleach. This only comes second to the Bound arc, in my opinion. It's considered the death blow that killed Bleach, and I can see why. It's the final arc of the show, but from start to finish, it just feels like filler. It's just that bad. If there were any loyal viewers of the show up to this point, I think they would have dropped off. I struggled to keep watching this show. The only reason I carried on was because I wanted to make this video. It's a terrible arc to what we thought would be the conclusion of the series back in 2012. If I had watched it back then, I would have been raging. Anyway, the main point of this arc is Ichigo trying to get his Shinigami powers back. Again, with the help of a brand new set of characters. The characters are kind of interesting, but then they're kind of not at the same time. It's just a weird arc in general. The final twist is that the leader of the group, who was supposedly helping him, is actually a villain and the first substitute Shinigami from a long time ago. He wanted Ichigo to get his powers back so that he could steal them from him to take revenge on Soul Society. Not only was this whole arc boring to watch, it just feels extremely forced just to suck more money out of the show. Like I said, I personally struggled to get through the whole of this arc, and after watching it, it just solidified my opinion that the series should have ended with saying goodbye to Rukia. I was happy to see all the main cast again at the end of the arc. They have new outfits and they kind of look a bit different, but that's only the case because I knew a new arc was coming. If I'd seen this back in 2012, I would have been disgusted. Of course, Ichigo regains his powers again. He also has a brand new look and he defeats the main baddie. The end. What a load of bollocks. Anyway, soon we will get a new arc, what will be the true conclusion of Bleach. I hope. I seriously hope they finish off the story well this time and leave it finished. I haven't read the manga, so I'm not quite sure how it's gonna go, but I am very excited to see what the plot will be. Because all the captains look different in the end of the last arc, I'm hoping for hopefully a variety of new abilities. Same goes for Ichigo. Hope he'll come up with something a bit more interesting than just the Getsuga Tensho, but you know, we'll see. After all the ups and downs I've seen throughout the show, I'm not sure if this new arc is gonna be the resurrection, redemption, and conclusion that Bleach deserves, or if it's just gonna be the final nail in the coffin. All in all, it is really a shame that Bleach became what it did. It had potential to be so much more, so much better. I think in this case, it would have benefited to just be a seasonal anime like Attack on Titan and My Hero Academia, where they just concentrate on the main plot. I do still stick to what I say, the plot does become a bit predictable after the third arc. The main arcs are both basically friend fetch quests. The fights do get super repetitive, especially the overuse of Getsuga Tensho. Once you've seen all the Bankai in the third arc, that's it. You've basically seen all the abilities. Apart from a few characters that aren't Ichigo, you don't really see any new powers or interesting powers. The characters just become stronger. There's always the almost dead No Hope scenario, but the main characters always seem to survive, except two that actually die in the end, but they're villains, so it doesn't even count. And of course, the most impactful negative, they place fillers where they shouldn't. Again, they basically have the habit of just hyping up the show to then just shoot it back down. This would have been a lot better if they had just stuck to the main plot. I love Bleach. It's definitely an anime that I do recommend and it is worth watching, but it does have a lot of issues. And again, like I said, this is just an opinion of one person. Let me know down below if you guys agree, disagree, if you have any different opinions. If there's enough interest and if there's enough comments, I may make a follow-up video and answer your questions. Thank you for watching, Farruski Clan. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to also thank my patrons and channel members for the love and support. And don't forget, if you want to become a Patreon or channel member, join the Farruski Clan Discord or follow me on social media. All those links are down below in the description. And that was it for this one. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Guy Farruski out.